Hi, Scott Sager here, Vice President for Church Relations at Lipscomb, and I'm so excited to tell you about a brand new book that's just come out by Holly Allen. It's titled Forming Resilient Children, and it will be available starting September 21st on Amazon. Holly teaches in both our family studies and our College of Bible. She is an expert in intergenerational ministry and how churches can better serve children inside of our congregations. I hope you'll pick up a copy of this important book and that you'll notice that what it's trying to do is to help us form a faith in our students that will last a lifetime and give them what they need to be resilient in a very challenging world. Let's hear a message from Holly that kind of gives us a capstone of the book. Thank you.
Antonio is one of the children who survived the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. The shooter entered Antonio's first grade classroom, paused, and then shot the teacher and one of Antonio's classmates. While the shooter was reloading, Antonio and other children ran out of the building, past the bodies of their principal and others who had been shot. Antonio heard most of the 156 shots fired that day. And since that time, he has asked about his friends who were killed, and sometimes he dreams about that terrible day. Other children have survived similar traumas, such as Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and the earthquakes in Haiti in 2010 and, recently, 2021. And there are children in Syria who lived through the recent civil war there, and of course the children who are now suffering in Afghanistan. Few of us know children who have survived such severe ordeals as these, but we do know children who live with other kinds of hardship. Children who've been bullied, who are coping with diabetes, have a sibling with special needs, or whose parents are divorcing. And of course, right now, all the children we know are living through a worldwide pandemic that has impacted them in many ways. And we ask, how is living with the fears, the restrictions, the losses of the pandemic affecting children? What will be the long-term social, psychological, emotional, and spiritual ramifications? And behind that question is our need to respond. How can we buffer those effects? Is there something we can be doing now? Another way to ask this is, how can we help children be resilient? As it happens, my book, Forming Resilient Children, will be released on September 21st, and it addresses this question head on. We all want the children in our lives to be resilient. All children need to be able to cope with the challenges and persevere through disappointment, because facing trials and setbacks is a universal experience. In fact, as you have been listening, something I have said may have triggered in you memories of grief or loss from your own childhood. How did you endure when your life fell down? What sustained you? Resilience research over the past few decades has come up with several protective factors that can buffer the effects of trauma and can promote resilience. Some of these protective factors may have been part of your recovery from hardship. Among the most foundational are capable parents. You may have had parents who listened to your fears and hopes, encouraged you, and carried the burden of the situation you were dealing with as adults, and they contributed to your resilience. You may not have had such parents, but others you knew may have helped carry you through. Grandparents, friends' parents, even peers, or teachers may have been the ones who listened you back to wholeness. Other factors are more personal factors. You may have borne your hardships and adversity well because of some personal qualities. Resilient scholars say that good problem-solving skills, keen self-awareness and self-control, high motivation to succeed, all of these are associated with children who've exhibited resilience. Another, you may have a foundational understanding of who you are. Children who are resilient tend to have a strong sense of identity. And connected to that, a sense of belonging is a quality that contributes to resilience as well. Being wanted, welcomed, invited, and included are some of the most mending experiences on the planet. But there's another protective factor, one I'm very interested in. This protective factor has been noted in the resilience studies as well, and it can contribute to children's ability to adapt well after trauma or adversity. It's called by various names, described in a number of ways. Sometimes it's called faith or hope, the belief that life has meaning. Sometimes it's associated with religiosity or with a connection to a transcendent or sacred other, or even church involvement. An umbrella term that can encompass many of these descriptions is spirituality. In the book, I define children's spirituality as the capacity for children to have a relationship with themselves, with others, and with God. I base this definition on the first and second great commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. What has intrigued me most in writing this book is that I began to realize how spirituality, as defined as the child's relationship with self, others, and God, intersects closely with many of the protective factors in the resilience research. Relationships are at the heart of resilience, and clearly, relationships are at the heart of spirituality, relationships with self, others, and God. So what nurtures spirituality can also foster resilience. You may wish to know some of the ways to nurture both. Maybe one of the best ways to foster both spirituality and resilience is to read books with children, and when you do so, to ask a couple of questions at the end. Who are you in this story, and why? For example, A Splendid Friend Indeed is one of Suzanne Bloom's Goose and Bear stories. Goose is very outgoing, very talkative. Bear is more reticent and quiet. Asking the child, who are you in the story, fosters the child self-understanding as well as the child-others relationship. As the child shares with you, and perhaps you share with them, if you are the goose or the bear, and why. Almost any child's book will work well. The Runaway Bunny, Love You Forever, Rainbow Fish. And for older children, maybe the Harry Potter books. Who are you in the story and why? Are you Hermione, Ron, Harry, Jenny, Luna, Neville? And why do you think you're like them? It's a wonderful conversation to have. It fosters that child-others conversation, but also it nurtures the child self-understanding. Another part of the spirituality piece is the child-God piece. How can we nurture that relationship? One of the simplest ways to do this is to ask, where have we seen God at work today? Children may respond with something about the physical world, the leaves changing, the rainbow, the clouds, and you can respond in kind. You can also share how you saw God at work, perhaps in a coworker, helping you with the copier. And they will begin to see that God is at work in people around us as well. Another way to nurture the child-God relationship is when we tell Bible stories. We can ask, what was God doing in Esther's story? In Joseph's life? In Samuel's life? And then you can ask, what is God doing in your life? And along the way, share what God is doing in your own life. God's teaching me patience as I learn a new computer system. And when you tell the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, ask children to imagine what the little boy may have been saying to God before he shared his lunch and what God may have been saying to him. And you can share what you have been saying to God lately and what God has been saying to you. And you can ask, is God saying something to you today? These are easy, non-formal ways to encourage that child-God relationship. Perhaps having a relationship with God was how you survived the difficulties of your childhood. Children who know a God who is present, who understands the magnitude of what they've experienced, who offers them unconditional love, who is at work bringing about justice, who's orchestrating healing, restoration, and recovery, possess the most powerful resilience armor possible. How was God present with you in those days when you were wounded, when your parents divorced, when you were lonely, when you were abused, when someone you loved died? God was there. He was present. He knew you by name. He comforted you. He accompanied you. You may not have known it at the time, but God was there. And as you come to see how God has sustained and upheld you in all those long ago traumas and losses, how relationships with your parents and others supported you, may you reach out to the children in your life and nurture their relationships with themselves, with others, and with the God of the brokenhearted.